And welcome back to Next Level News. As always, I'm your host, Coronations. We got some great stories coming up. Let's get to it. The 5 fans of the upcoming Rocksteady title Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League will be disappointed to know that the upcoming game that was slated for a May 2023 release has just been delayed to February 2024. That's right, the game that only had a month left to go has been delayed an entire 10 months. That's a big oof. This, however, somehow doesn't come off as that big of a surprise. Rocksteady's latest release, Gotham Knights, flopped both critically and commercially last year. It makes sense that the game they were working on that is very much the same thing with a different coat of paint and a bad Margot Robbie ripoff would make the company sweat a bit. So, why is nobody really all that surprised? Well, it's because only a few months ago did we finally get to see gameplay footage of Suicide Squad, but it also showed that the title would be heavily designed around live service features. The inclusion of said live service features had people downvoting in massive droves, making the video quickly become the most disliked video that Warner Brothers, the parent company of Rocksteady, has ever produced. Turns out, gamers are not clamoring for their next superhero title to be Marvel's Avengers. Please stop making Marvel's Avengers. Alright, wrestling fans, Tony Khan has a major announcement. This one even bigger than the last one he had a week ago. Or the week before that. Or the week before that. I'm getting sidetracked. The president of All Elite Wrestling announced during an interview that the company's debut into the AAA gaming sphere is finished. That's right, AEW Fight Forever is ready to release. It's done. It's gone gold. Except a developer on the game says otherwise. A person by the name of Ziddy on Twitter commented on Khan's claim, stating that, if you want an unfinished game, sure, we could release now. Ziddy explained further that the game, while fully playable, has had many things left to be worked on. Particularly, it had to pass quality assurance tests and get optimized for all platforms. It also needed to get a set release date as well as get localized for the various languages it supports. It also needs to be rated by the ESRB. The list of things that still needed to be done show how far from finished the game actually is. Not to mention the fact that the game could be having some serious roster issues with the whole Fallout Brawlout situation, where AEW wrestler and professional muffin eater CM Punk got into a physical altercation with the Elite, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks. Just the 3 executive vice presidents of the company. Oops. While we will never know the exact details of what went down in CM Punk's private locker room, the incident has had major ramifications for the company, including the video game. CM Punk was front and center on the cover art and was heavily featured in promo material for the game. The situation with Punk's status in the company could very well have the game on hold as he was so heavily featured in the advertising. Blizzard has expanded more on how their upcoming title Diablo 4 will be handled post-launch. Turns out the game will be receiving what the director, Joseph Pepioria, called meaty updates. These updates are scheduled for every 3 months, and they are claimed to include new story content, cosmetics, gear sets, and even gameplay features. I wonder where they got that idea from. So far the games look solid, with both fans of the title and critics in the industry offering up high praise on the technical test of the game that happened only a few weeks back. The game is set to release on June 6th. Okay, it's been a few months, I've gotten my Destiny fill, so how good is the latest expansion in this nearly 10-year-old franchise? Let's find out.
Fed this force with vicious subjugation, battered down the gates of our enemies, and seized our glittering prize. Why? Because I wanted it! You hold the universe in your grasp, and all you can think of to do with it is... Secure the veil. We will create the link. Infinite apologies. The veil is yours. It will be done.
Destiny 2 Lightfall was supposed to be the beginning of the end, the Infinity War in the story, if you will. Instead, Lightfall ended up being like Thor the Dark World. Overall bad, but at least it's kind of fun in a bad way. The expansion and subsequently the season, called Season of Defiance, shows the Guardians fight a war on two fronts, a war with the Shadow Legion on Earth and other locations, and the B-Team fighting a war on the new destination, a city on Neptune called Neomuna. The Lightfall campaign specifically deals with Neomuna, and the seasonal content deals with Earth and old locations. Starting with the actual expansion content, we get a whole lot of nothing story-wise. Many people way more knowledgeable than me on Destiny lore have spent hours telling the Destiny community how they don't really know much about what happened in Lightfall. So if you are wanting a killer story, you should look elsewhere. The one thing that is good about Lightfall is the introduction to a new subclass called Strand. Strand marks the third time in the series where Guardians were given a new subclass to play with. The first time being back in D1 when all the classes got access to their final light subclass, as the game initially launched with each character class only having access to 2 of the elemental subclasses. The second time was in Beyond Light when we were introduced to Stasis, the first dark-based subclass. Well, Lightfall brings up the second darkness-based subclass, called Strand. This green subclass is all about movement and crowd control. Each Guardian class has their own spin on the subclass, and they all feel semi-unique from each other. Titans can easily proc Woven Mail, as well as suspend enemies in the air. Hunters are able to easily zip around the battlefield and dive bomb to the ground, suspending enemies. Warlocks are masters of the swarm with the ability to spawn tiny threadlings that will bomb their enemies like good little lemmings. Each class feels fun, and each one feels worth playing, something that cannot be said about Stasis. Neomuna also is a pretty cool location, though there are very few reasons to visit it after you complete the campaign. There are a few craftable and non-craftable weapons, but none of them are worth getting over other much more reliable loot found in other areas of the expansion. The best thing Lightfall brings is the new raid. While easily one of the easiest raids to date, the Root of Nightmares raid is both fun and has killer loot to grab, with easily the best legendary auto rifle in the game currently, as well as an amazing shotgun and trace rifle, and an even better exotic shotgun to farm for. On the seasonal content side of things, we get one of the most forgettable seasons of the year, and an unfortunate minor character death that just so happens to coincide with the very real death of actor Lance Reddick, who plays major character Commander Zavala. To say that the season's story made me uncomfortable due to this fact is a pretty hefty understatement. However, story discomfort aside, the season itself is the same old that we have come to know in the past 2 years. Weekly missions for a few weeks, and not much else besides replaying those exact same missions as just normal, repeatable missions. Pretty standard stuff. On the PvP side of things, we also haven't gotten much introduced. In fact, we have had virtually nothing introduced except for a couple new Trials weapons, including the single best PvP gun in the game currently, the Strand SMG the Immortal. Seriously, just type in Destiny PvP SMG and the Immortal will be flooding your feed. This thing is beyond cracked and makes many wonder if there's even a reason to use anything else currently. As for Gambit, what about Gambit? Overall, Lightfall has been a massive letdown. Bungie has always made fun gameplay, that's a given. But Lightfall wasn't supposed to be about the gameplay, it was supposed to be about the story. Lightfall is the second to last expansion Destiny could possibly ever receive, with the developers at Bungie confirming that next year's expansion, Final Shape, will bring a close to the Light vs. Dark saga. However, they haven't even given us a hint at what's coming for Destiny players after. For all we know, Final Shape could be the last hurrah for any serious amount of content as Bungie moves on to new games that they've been working on since 2020. Lightfall is a disappointment, no matter how you look at it. It fails to deliver us the much-needed story after the excellent year of story content that all started with last year's expansion, The Witch Queen. For Lightfall to follow up arguably the best expansion that Destiny 2 has ever had, with what equated to a middle finger to the player with no explanation as to why they were being flipped off, it just kind of sucks. My motivation to play it has died off, and I haven't even touched the game in about a month. Yet I'm still supposed to be playing as we're a solid month away from the next season to launch. At this point for me, I just feel like, what's the point? So while Lightfall has brought in a fun new subclass as well as some of the best raid weapons in years alongside a pretty amazing raid, I gotta smack Lightfall with like a 4 out of 10. This expansion should have been better. It needed to be better. It is in every single way a letdown and really makes players feel the fact that Lightfall and Final Shape were at one point supposed to be the same exact expansion. This was not worth my $100. Hell, Lightfall isn't even worth its base price of $60, minus the entire year's worth of content. Save your money, wait for the game to go on sale, or better yet, maybe just don't play until the next expansion next year. It is just hard to recommend anyone pick up Destiny with this expansion. It's just that bad.
The universe makes us all victim and perpetrator of its infinite cruelty. You, more than any, suffer both fates. Be free.
And that does it for Next Level News. As always, I'm your host, Coronations, and I'll see you next time on Next Level News.